Oh, thank you.
Okay, so it's time to get going, everybody. So welcome all, and let's get started. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, and second, Eugene. Favor? All right. And the minutes. Everybody's had to look at the minutes. So a motion for the minutes. Okay. Seconder, Kaylee, in favor? Okay. Now we're into public comments, and I think we've got at least one public commenter. That's Cam. Let's see.
10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
I won't be able to fill 10 minutes. I'll speak slowly.
I don't know what the formalities are. Stand by for a moment. I'll get the sound sorted out. Tell us. And then for this part where he's just presenting, I would step out for the next part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for this, it's okay, right? Yeah. Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds,
your mask.
back on.
Yeah, I'm just looking, but I don't have anything else to do. Well, the information, I will get me, yeah. That's the daughter. And Sunny. Can you just try again?
Okay,
Is that?
yeah, go ahead, Cam.
You want me to go ahead?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I'm not hearing the echo now. That would be better.
Great. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Cameron Rolfe. I'm the proponent for West Side Village at 1355 West Side Road. Our rezoning and OCP amendment applications are before this committee today for referral. Our plans for 34 affordable homes. The homes will be owned by our residents and the land will be leased to them. The combined cost for this homeownership is similar to buying a traditional house for $400,000. The way we're able to keep this affordable is by renting, not selling the land. This committee has a mouthful of a name, the Parks, Environment, and Climate Action Advisory Committee. I'd like to talk to those three things. Firstly, parks. We're offering a park dedication of a trail on the east side of the property that ultimately will lead from West Side Road to Adams Road. Part of this trail crosses Lot 7, and we are collaboratively working with the applicant of Lot 7 to make this complete trail a reality. Environment. Our most careful consideration is the sensitive ecosystems and biodiversity of this very special property. We have a pond, a stream, and some wetlands on the property. With the assistance of our registered professional biologist, we will develop a plan to preserve and protect all of the sensitive areas while maintaining an uninterrupted wildlife corridor. Climate action. Some of the details of our plan that aid in climate action are the clustering of housing, which provides more housing with less disruption to the land. The houses are small, requiring fewer resources to construct and less energy to maintain and operate. And utilizing the shared resources of the village. We'll have a clubhouse, a community gardens, a village water system, as well as a rainwater collection system. And all of these things can be done at scale to benefit the whole village and a reduced overall footprint. So, conservation development. Nature needs half. This is something that we have struggled with mightily. Westside Village is proposing about 30% for nature. And this includes a riparian area around Murray Creek, a small wetland area, and a park dedication trail. This includes all of the most sensitive areas, as well as a high value trail, which I understand has been on the Parks and Trail Committee wish list for some time. My understanding of the required elements of all rezoning applications are environmental, 100%, affordable housing, 15%, and conservation development, nature needs half, or 50%. We're all in at 100% on environmental sustainability. Our plan, first for Bowen Island, is 100% affordable housing, far in excess of the 15% minimum requirement. And our proposal is that nature gets about 30%. So in summary, Westside Village hopes to be Bowen Island's first 100% affordable housing development. We pledge to meet the highest environmental standards and provide protection of sensitive ecosystems and biodiversity without exception. In exchange for 20% of the nature needs half policy, we're offering an additional 29 affordable residences. Because what we've heard over and over again from the community is Bowen needs affordable homes more than it needs parkland. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. Are there other people here to do public comments? Nope. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, we're at the council referrals. Rezoning of lot 7 Adams Road. Drew, got the presentation.
I gather it was extremely wet.
Yes, yeah, we'll breathe too.
The field trip, yes.
Yeah. So thank you, PECAAC. So this presentation is to return to the Parks, Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee with a referral from council for an application to rezone lot 7 of Adams Road after carrying out a site visit with PECAAC members. So the application was originally introduced to council on May 26th, then was brought back to council later on September 8th after staff further investigated concerns around impacts to groundwater quality and quantity. At this time, council referred the application to committees. The file was originally discussed with PECAAC at the October 1st meeting, followed by a site visit on October 31st. Staff met with PECAAC members and mainly walked around the buildable area for lot 1, then moved along the front of the property to get a look at the buildable areas of the other lots. Members were able to get an up-close view of the natural conditions and topography of the property. So staff are looking for a recommendation from PECAAC as to whether the committee does or does not support the rezoning proposal for lot 7 of Adams Road. Regarding environmental protections, if PECAAC feels strongly about a conservation covenant versus municipal park dedication, we would appreciate a recommendation on that topic as well.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? Lawrence, can you hear us?
We can't hear you, Lawrence.
The answer is yes, I can hear. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. Okay, I was unable to attend the walkabout. Those that had a chance to be on the walkabout, do you have some comments and input?
Yeah, Sarah had asked me to do a little synopsis.
Next time.
Yeah, as you say, the weather was pretty abysmal. And not facilitated by the nature of the land, which is boulders and dense bush in a lot of cases. The general lie of the land is where the road is actually a fill that's been sort of brought up to the level of Adams Road. The rest of the property and where the proposed building sites are is actually quite a bit lower than the road. And if you look at the general disposition of the land, On the south side is a slope, and then there's Adams Road, and you can see where Adams Road was fill that was added to level. And it goes quite a way below for the better part of those building sites, below the road, and it looked foggy. Well, it was it was very rainy and wet. But it was what became apparent as in the course of our discussion was the realization that they're not offhand readily buildable sites, with the exception of the most westerly site, which is partly on fill. There's a well there that had been drilled earlier on the edge of Bowen Brook. And the rest of it sort of drops away, and while it's flat, it's looks tenuous to say the least. Obviously, a lot of modification would be required to the land in order to make it buildable in some way or other. And then that raises the question of how does that, whatever is proposed to be done, how would that affect the drainages and because this is upstream, of course, of the water course going into ultimately into Grafton Lake. So it seemed, as we were discussing it, that it was ultimately would be incumbent upon the proponent to give more information on the nature of land modifications required to make the sites buildable, at least 3 of them anyway, to ensure that they didn't adversely affect the drainages. There are issues not merely of establishing a substrate that's suitable for building, but also there's the question of potable water source, probably from a well, and septic disposal. You know, those would all have to be, we don't have any idea what the proponent is imagining for that. But I would think that it's incumbent upon them to provide an idea so that we have a sense of whether or not that's going to adversely affect the drainages, which are the critical part in the property.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the site visit either, but one of the questions I had, just my knowledge of that area in terms of it's obviously an area that's very important to the Bowen Brook going into Grafton Lake, that sort of corridor there, and I guess there's 2 things come to mind. One is it being such a wet site, what is the impact? And I tried to understand the groundwater recharge information. If anybody really gets that, I would appreciate some more information on that. But just also looking at the impact of building on 4 houses on that site into the Grafton Lake watershed, because that whole corridor is just so super important for that. So, and I didn't, in the reading I did not get what I felt was sufficient information about those impacts on the watershed. So those were sort of I guess really it's all, for me, one of my biggest concerns is about water, either groundwater recharge and as well the impacts on the Grafton Lake, obviously the potable water supply system. So if anybody has a really good synopsis of the groundwater, that report, groundwater recharge for that area, I would appreciate it. Anybody feel really like they really get that?
Comes fast.
I was just gonna suggest I could send around video, but it wouldn't help. Bob and Rosemary, Dr. Rosemary Knight, Bob Turner came and presented as a delegation to council. But Over to you, Carla.
Yeah, sure. So I was just gonna add that I did read the report. I wouldn't say I have a super thorough understanding of it, but I read it from front to back. So I think what I got from it, was that they looked at the geology, they looked at fault lines, and they tried to figure out where our groundwater was most vulnerable to. It's like it's where the most important recharge areas are, and one thing that Rosemary Knight and Bob Turner brought up was that those are also places of vulnerability because the water is coming in there faster and it's not going through the sediment where it would, reduce its microbial load and that kind of thing. That those are slots where it would be more vulnerable. The most important recharge areas are the most vulnerable.
And lot 7 is in that vulnerable area.
Yeah,
That was the part I didn't really get from when I took a quick look at the report.
yes. What's the vulnerabilities are?
Of that particular site.
Oh, so I think that the map that was circulated by Will, he overlaid the parks on it, it's for a different thing, but if you look at that map, that was part of the study, and the darker blue areas are the most important groundwater areas.
And that lot
And that
falls
lot
within
falls right in that,
Right.
yeah.
And to add to this, just that one study about the water, the chemistry of Grafton Lake gives me a bit of the willies of thinking we've got to be really careful about infiltration of chemicals from gardens, from septic systems, and just human activity. And so I think we have to be extra careful in these high quality recharge areas. Did I see a hand up on the screen there? Lawrence?
I believe.
No,
Claudia
okay.
is also joined as well.
Okay. All
Someone
right.
as well, somebody else?
Claudia is.
Claudia.
Yeah,
Oh,
as well. Yeah.
Hi, Claudia. Do you have any input there?
Hi, no, just the same concern that from what I'm seeing that it's not appropriate to subdivide and build more lots in such a sensitive area. And I know that Bob and Rosemary Knight, were very concerned once they had looked into it. And so yeah, I'm having some definite hesitation to promote this subdivision request.
Now, Kaylee, you had some thoughts too that you've expressed to me. Maybe you could share it with the group.
I appreciated that the development was clustered towards Adams Road, which is already a paved surface, and that the roof runoff most likely would then go to gravel pits, and the roof runoff would then be returned to the groundwater in that way. And that the associated footprint with the development is clustered towards Adams Road, which means that the impermeable surfaces associated with the development would be quite minimal, including driveways, and perhaps if the number of trails are reduced, that would also reduce the impermeability surfaces on the lots. When we were on site, there was some discussion about the well, and I looked it up, and it was drilled in 2020. And then there's actually a second well on the property that was drilled in the 80s, which we didn't find on site. And we we don't know where they're obtaining the water for these houses. I'm curious to know if Bob and Rosemary presented their concerns when it was going to be 4 fourplexes, or if they presented under the current proposal.
I want to say that they framed the presentation as just a general concern about groundwater, and then that this result was mentioned, but Drew might know the actual timing.
Yeah, so like when this actually went forward as a fourplex, I think it was like 5+ years ago. So
Oh.
when Bob and Rosemary recently presented, it was regarding this proposal.
Carla.
Could I just, we talk a little bit about on site too, that the lot is still subdividable regardless of whether there's a rezoning. So I would, if Drew could maybe clarify, what area of land might be developable with just the subdivision and with the rezoning, like if you could possibly compare that, because with this rezoning, we can see that like maybe like 2/3 is proposed as being a covenant area or a park. Whereas if it was just subdivided without the rezoning, none of that would be a park or a covenant area. But certainly they wouldn't be allowed to develop right over top of a stream or a wetland, because there are provincial regulations in place for that, as well as municipal development permit areas. But it would be nice to maybe just consider that.
And to tag on to that, what the maximum build out under the current zoning without going through this process would be. So if they're allowed a secondary structure, and what a maximum lot coverage would be allowable.
Sure. So in terms of options, so without pursuing a rezoning, so under the current zoning of the property, they could subdivide into 2 lots. So without going to council, without us kind of getting to negotiate some of these things. In that case, we would still have, it wouldn't toss out our options for getting environmental protections like we'd have other avenues. I think it's through the Land Titles Act of requiring some protected areas. And then of course there'd be the riparian protections, of course, still in place. Without doing any subdivision, with just straight up building on the existing lot as 1 big lot. So yeah, do that, of course, yeah, no rezoning, no subdivision, that would be just single family dwelling development. They could do up to 1,500 square meters lot coverage. And of course, yeah, secondary dwelling would be an option, like whether attached or detached secondary suite. That would be part of the options.
And would that be 1,500 square meters as well?
No, that would all have to be captured within that 1,500 square meters. So private dwelling, secondary dwelling, and accessory structures.
And then do we know how much this is? How much footprint this is? Is it equal to that 1,500 square meters times 2?
Struggling to remember the lot size we propose on.
Sorry.
Let me just back out of the shed screen.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's gonna be 1,500 square meters, regardless, it's an awful lot of space covered. I mean, why not have it be multiple dwellings?
Yeah. And that's for 2 lots, because they can subdivide, have 2 lots without going through rezoning, without setting aside the park.
Right.
And then so each one would be 1,500 square meters, so that's 3,000 square meters. And so if the 4 houses are, even if it's equal to that, we still get that park set aside.
Yes, absolutely.
So a covenant versus a park. So what is the proposal is for that land be covenanted, not a park? Is that correct?
They've proposed, like currently their proposal is a conservation covenant, but we have the ability to request that it be dedicated as a park if that's preferable.
Right, okay.
Sure.
So the protection of the wetlands, presumably irrespective of what is built, is kind of built into the existing constraints, right? Because it is a wetland that's lying. Am I correct in saying that they would, in essence, not be able to do much with it. When we were there, we were talking about this proposed loop trail they were putting around it, which really didn't seem particularly practical, given that it's all marsh. It's not an area that anybody would go to. There was the trail link to, West Side Road was a different matter that had some practical imaginable use. But I'm kind of concerned, I guess. It's obviously not within our purview to remark on the how they build. Presumably that's all controlled by other regulations that they have to build in a way that doesn't otherwise disrupt the land. But I wonder, I mean, do we have any say in that process? Because it has come to a proposal for four lots as opposed to two or one or two. I mean, I would have difficulty supporting the initiative if the active building would somehow alter or compromise the integrity of the wetlands and obviously the water resource. That's covered, is it, in the building regulations and so on, that they would be forced to comply with
Can speak to that if you don't mind. So there's two different provincial regulations that would apply to this property. One of them is the riparian areas protection regulation, and that's the 30-meter setback from fish habitat. And so because Bowen Brook is fish bearing, it has that protection. You're allowed to develop within that 30 meters up to the SPIA, which is the Stream Protection Enhancement Area, with permits from both the local government and from the province. The other piece of legislation that would apply would be the Water Sustainability Act, and it applies to the bed and bank of creeks and wetlands. There's some definitions around the wetlands. They need to be connected to drainages through surface water. And so if you have a pond that isn't connected, it may or may not be subject to that legislation. The province will allow infilling of wetlands, which is a change approval. That's a special permit that you go through. And it's an 18-month process in order to get that. And along with that, you have to have engineers, geotechnical, hydrology, there's First Nations consultation. So it's quite an in-depth process to go through that. It is possible. So when I made the comment in the field about time and money, being able, you can develop anything, you just need the time and money, that's what you would be looking at to go through that process. So in this case, the way that they've presented their parcel would apply the setbacks for the riparian areas protection regulation, and I don't believe they would need to apply for WSA. But that would mean the Water Sustainability Act, but that would mean a more in-depth look at the wetlands on the property, and I didn't do that. That's up to the other professional, and I can't remember who that was.
It wasn't environmental shared, right?
Yeah.
Time ahead consultants.
Would they be eligible to subdivide the property and or rezone it if there was not enough developable land without staying in the wetland? Like,
Undue hardship would kick in then, and I don't.
for a single property, but I don't think you could then subdivide and say, undue hardship, I'm doing.
That's right. You're not allowed, the way the law is written is you're not allowed to subdivide that renders a lot as undue hardship.
So the connection there is just that I think that the environmental was done and probably there. From that, we probably already determined that there is enough land on each lot to develop a home.
Yeah.
According to the environmental assessment.
there are enough constraints in place that they're not going to compromise the water source by building.
By surface water? No,
Obviously,
I
there are
can't speak
rules
to
about
groundwater.
this. Also rules about septic, obviously.
Yes, and that's the septic engineer. That's a different community.
So, Councillor Fast.
Thanks. Good discussion. My question, I guess, is, I'm looking at the agenda here, the two, they've already adjusted their property protected under the covenants from the former 75%. And now the proposal is 83% protected under covenant is what they're proposing. Municipality could ask for that to be parked. My question is, what would the percentage be if they just went ahead and subdivided?
You're asking about the percentage of protected area?
Yeah. How does it compare with the 83? It's just since Jeremy brought it up.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I kind of touched on that. That's if they subdivided, we wouldn't necessarily be able to get this exact package that we have, but we would have some options there in the Land Titles Act to request protection. So.
Hard to say.
Yeah, without having gone down that exact road, like
That's fair enough. Okay, thank you. I just
I would assume it would probably be less than the 83%. Yeah. So what I'm hearing, my brief summary is that the site visit resulted in some concerns about how to put in 4 houses on the area that's been identified as developable in the 83% model. And we might not have anything to say about that because there's provincial and regional regulations that they will have to deal with, and that will give that land and the water system some level of protection. And the other thing is we're looking at the options of 4 houses with 83% of the land subdivided and 2 houses with possible auxiliary suites equaling kind of 4 houses, or at least 4 families, let's say, with probably less protection for the land, water. Gigi and then Sue Ellen.
Just a question or a comment, I guess. So if it was 4 lots, then there could be 8 houses, right? Correct? Because they would still have a secondary suite or a secondary building. So we're looking at
Outside the conservation covenant, so it would still have to fall within that area that's not set aside.
so it'd still be clustered.
So, yeah,
That's a good
so
point.
looking at 8. The other thing is in terms of a covenant versus parkland, and I realize if it was parkland, it would not be parkland. That was looking at our categories of parkland would not be something that would be a high use. It would be really parkland that's set aside for nature. And in my previous work, I did see quite a few covenant areas along stream sides that were just grass right to the very edge. So if we're looking at protecting that area, a lot of times a covenant is not, people consider it their own. And even parkland, I mean, I was in the place in Saanich where it was parkland, the people just were right there. So I think we need to consider that if we are going to say, go for the 83%, that it be designated parkland, and I think the higher protection for that resource.
On that, Sue Ellen, did you have
I was
some?
just gonna say the eight, yeah, eight, possible eight
Yeah.
dwellings as well, yeah. But, you know, I'm more interested in the parks, trails, greenways, climate action, environment side of it, which is 83%, but I'll have of time to say that at council. I'm just more interested in what you
Yeah.
guys are saying.
The other thing I was going to say, if I can remember, sometimes when I have this long wait for you to say something, it flies off into the ether. Oh yeah, there's in a little conversation I had with Kaylee before the meeting started. We're talking about. I kind of came up with three options. Is a general covenant that a park or a islands trust covenant where it's inspected annually. But Sue Ellen knows more about this than I do, so.
Yeah, I'll just say a few words. I used to be on the board of the Islands Trust Conservancy, and they have lots of requests coming in, people wanting their land being protected, which is a great thing. But they accept properties that have species at risk, that are of a certain size, maybe this would meet the size, that haven't been already modified. I don't know whether this would fit that qualification because it had been excavated for fill, 50 years ago or something like that. It has been modified and it's not in its natural, what we think of as its natural state anymore. So I doubt that they would accept it.
Just wondering, Carla, if there are any considerations that would be taken into account from the staff perspective of creating a new park? Maintenance.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit the last meeting as well, and I put a lot for thought into it, to be honest. I think that we'd probably be willing to take it on as park. I think that we would have no intention of developing that parkland. It would be a nature park, and they're pretty. We can kind of get away with not doing any maintenance on those, especially if when we take up property, we make sure that there's wind firm line of trees so that development and possible neighbor trees are far away from each other. And then the only other thing that was a bit of a concern was the potential of that. The stream is really dynamic there, and we've had issues with the blown out culverts and everything. So I'd be a little bit worried about liability in some ways. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't want to end up having to build something to block water from houses or something like that. So hopefully we would look at that really thoroughly before and make sure that the people who are building houses are building them to a flood construction level that like they would have to build up quite high, I think, to avoid a risk like that. But yeah, I think that
About managing the beavers in that area too.
I didn't consider taking the beavers in there.
Oh, yeah. There's beavers at the dog ranch.
I thought they were dogs.
Well, and I think I wouldn't want to, like, that's not something that I would want to take on. But yeah, that could be a concern because if the beavers are modifying
And flooding it.
the land, and I wouldn't want to end up being responsible for that, but I don't. Yeah, well, exactly, like,
Yeah, you can't
it's a
stop
fight,
them.
we're not
Yeah.
going to win.
Yeah.
So. So I don't know if we can, write that into a policy that this is not something that we would be willing to entertain. The only time to do any kind of fighting the beavers is when it has to do with some, utilities infrastructure, like culverts, where we have to do it. So anyways, I'm not sure of the implications of that.
I'm just gonna call on Claudia just to see, and Lawrence, just to make sure we get input from you too. Hi, Claudia.
Hi there. Uh, it's a lot to digest, and I'm not sure we understand the processes that are happening there and the risk to the groundwater recharge and potential contamination in Grafton Lake. Are there more, or is there a study that can be asked of the proponents that will more accurately indicate what the risks are with developing in this manner from a professional, qualified environmental person like a hydrologist or what have you. I guess I'm feeling like I like the idea of 81 or 83% rather than in a covenant, but in a municipal park, because I don't feel that covenants are as protective as they should be. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. What can be asked of the proponents to make anything any clearer? Or do other people feel like we have all the information we need to make the decision?
So if I can answer Claudia's question, currently the applicants, they've hired a hydrogeologist and they're doing studies that started late September and go till mid-November, studying impacts to the groundwater. So this is during the wet season. And then, yeah, at the end of that, I guess at the end of that period of time, we're expecting them to come back with some results that will make it clear to us what the impacts will be. And it's not until we get those results that we'll be going back to council. So I think those concerns should be addressed with this new information to come.
Okay, then I feel like passing a resolution in favor or against at this time is better postponed until we have that clarity from the hydrogeologist's report.
Just one more comment on the flooding. I guess I'd be interested to know what how the flood construction level was established for that site and whether it, what is it taking? Given the comments that have been raised about swampiness, potential beavers and other concerns in that area. And we've got climate change giving us big dumps of rain now. So I think Claudia's suggestion is a good one. Do people have any comments? Well,
I was just going to add that I would support Claudia's position. But my concerns too are mainly about groundwater and the relationship of the proposed septic systems. And I was just wondering, are they required to lay out more details of the proposed septic and drainage arrangements and treatment of runoff water from the buildings before this is accepted or rejected? So I generally would support Claudia's position that it should be deferred until we have more details from that study.
Just answer that question with septic information. Maybe Daniel can add to that, but I expect that most of those details will be during the subdivision stage.
But does that mean you have to approve the subdivision before you see the details of the proposed septic arrangements?
We're considering the decision on the rezoning, and so yeah, we'd be considering whether or not to approve just this the change of zoning designation to land before at the subdivision stage. We mainly dealing with the specifics of the septic system.
Right. Okay.
Is it not the case that it's Vancouver Coastal Health that deals with all septic regulations to make sure, yeah, it's not really something the muni does. And so I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention if that was true. And for me, as a member of council, I'm here in a liaison role. I think it would be helpful to council, who has also asked some of these questions, to hear from this committee that, you know, if the concerns about drainages and impacts on the watershed and water quality can be taken care of, then this committee would be in, recommends that council, whatever, give us some advice. Right. Assuming that's what that's what would be most helpful to, and let us know if we've missed things like beavers to think about, then recommend it. Yeah, that's what I would appreciate.
Okay. Sure.
So are we to second guess the regulations that control septic and all the rest of the things that apply in relation to building? Or are they going to cover the things? I mean, are they going to deal with those issues beyond the just rezoning of the property? I mean, our apprehension about rezoning it, if it's, nobody wants to do that, if it's not tenable ultimately to safely build on those sites, but is there an assurance from the existing regulations and subdivision and septic and all the rest of it that those concerns will be adequately addressed? I mean, imaginably they were designed to do that, but as Claudia suggests, and that was my sense looking at the site, was that, boy, we don't really have a lot of information on some of the things that impact potentially groundwater and downstream effects of building and septic. But obviously we're not experts on that, and there's supposedly regulations that are designed to mitigate those problems, even in difficult situations like this one. I don't know what people think about it. I like the idea of delaying it. Just as long as that's within our purview to do so.
Yeah, just sort of further to that, and further to Sue Ellen's comments. I'm not adverse to the development happening as long as it meets certain standards. And the question is, in my mind, is whether or not splitting it into 4 lots that have potentially 2 houses, it would meet the standards for which I think this committee would feel comfortable. So I guess where I go is we need further information, not only about the groundwater, but also about the impacts of developing such a wet site to the water supply, to the Grafton Lake watershed. So that's 2 different aspects that I don't feel, I was just quickly rereading this, and have been addressed. I mean, it's great to have 83% covenanted or in a nature park, but if the building and the impacts of the actual development are going to be negatively impacting the groundwater recharge as well as the water supply, then the 83% really isn't going to help, is it? Or maybe it will. We don't have that information, and so I would lean towards making the recommendation that if the proponent can demonstrate through reports that it can meet the concerns of this committee, then it would be okay to go ahead. And in order to do that, we would need further reports by qualified professionals so that we'll be in a position to say, yeah, go ahead, if that makes sense.
So thinking of making it out, if people are in agreement with what DG's saying, my question is, what are the criteria that we think must be met? And I think it's water quality, low or no impact on groundwater recharge, protection of wetlands.
Also for different species. I wondered, have they looked for species of that risk, like red-legged frog? It seems like it would be really good habitat for the upland version.
I have them on my property, which is really close to theirs, so I can't imagine they're not there.
Yeah. Right, I mean, seems perfect habitat for a red-legged frog.
So
And there's been I didn't read anything about that and when I looked at.
I'll just note that we did have a riparian report prepared with his application. That was one of the first things that they submitted with it. And since then we've gone on the tangent of groundwater. But yeah, their riparian report would have been assessing flora and fauna found on site. So I can't remember if they specifically spoke to that type of frog, but
But of course, the frog uses the upland forest, not just the riparian. So. Yeah, you can.
yeah, the report was assessed the whole property.
Oh, it says the whole property, not just the riparian.
Do you maybe speak to the hydrology report that they're already done, or did we talk about that already? I would wanted you to clarify maybe because council has already asked for more information on groundwater. And so we've talked to the proponent and we also spoke with with William Schulba at the same time as the freshwater specialist for Islands Trust and discuss what the proponent should have to provide in order to, provide assurances that there was enough groundwater and that we would be negatively impacting groundwater with this development. So that study is underway. Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
sorry.
Yeah, up until mid-November.
it looks to me that one of the things this committee needs to do, probably not tonight, is develop a list of criteria that we should look at in each referral, so that we can streamline this process so that go forward more efficiently and quickly. But I think listening to Claudia and DG, and I think maybe others, we are saying that, and I think, if we make that list that I was just going through, we say, if these are protected to a high level, we would be inclined to recommend the 83% parkland or
Option.
that's called the 83% option.
If you want to make the recommendation.
Because I bet you
Yes.
Sarah's been taking notes over there. She might
Yeah.
have something drafted.
I have just the study bit here.
Sorry, one thing I wanted to insert too, I wasn't able to answer a question earlier, but I can answer it now. Sorry about that. So it had been brought up about the lot coverage, so I mentioned that if property were developed as just one lot, no rezoning, no subdivision, just dealt as one property, they could do a lot coverage of up to 1,500 square meters, and then someone asked, what would be the lot coverage on each of these proposed lots if it's rezoned subdivided before, what's the lot coverage on each? So they'll have essentially the same zoning, they're rezoning from RR3 to RR3C. So all they get out of that little distinction there is just a smaller lot size. So the lot coverage will all remain the same. That being said, it's not just a 1,500 for everyone. It's a scale is based on lot size. It's 3.5% of lot area plus 100 square meters to a maximum of 1,500 square meters. So I did a quick just breakdown on what the size of those lots would be. So I think we'd be looking about 400 to 500 square meter footprint for each lot instead of 1,500. And then keep in mind that as well would just have to fit within what we see on the site plan, those buildable areas. So
Smaller.
right.
Yeah. Claudia had a comment there, I think. Right? Claudia. Claudia, oh, hi.
Hey, I was thinking that based on what Sue Ellen said, that we want to provide some advice if we're not actually voting to support or not support, but on next steps. And I think we can quite readily do that with a few things that have already come up in discussion, and that is that that we await the hydrogeological report and any other forthcoming reports before accepting or rejecting the subdivision proposal. And that with assurances from qualified professionals that the groundwater recharge area will not be negatively impacted, and there will be no contamination of our drinking water in Grafton Lake, and that the wetlands are protected because they are likely provincially at risk, those ecosystems. Most wetlands in this subzone are, and that species at risk are properly accounted for and will not suffer deleterious effects from the subdivision and building of additional houses. That, as Will put it, we are likely to support the proposal. So I don't know if I spoke too fast but
Can you,
Yes.
can you see this screen that Sarah has been typing?
yes.
Okay, great.
So I've just sort of put it all out there and we can probably make it into some bullets.
I think that's, you've said it very well, recorded it very well, Sarah.
Yeah.
Doing it as Claudia spoke, I was going, I can't type that fast.
I guess species at risk are properly surveyed for.
Let's make it a little.
Assessed.
Assessed.
Oh, assessed?
Assessed. We don't have formal surveys for some of the species.
But I mean survey by like having a professional go on site and look for them.
Actually assess negative effects if you don't know what you're building yet. I think that's a problem, isn't it?
They can do it based on footprint. Groundwater would assess based on how much concrete, how much impermeable surface, and then what they're planning on doing with the runoff and where it goes.
So I think it should be groundwater recharge area.
Can I suggest turn off those captions so that we can see the all of your typing?
Needs to be on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Accessibility.
right. Yes, thank you.
If I move it up a little bit, you like that?
I'm on the accessibility committee. I think I remember that.
Why don't we also suggest that council request information on planned septic system installation, groundwater runoff, dealing with groundwater runoff. Michaeli, you were saying like impermeable, the extent of impermeable surfaces. Were there other things, Michaeli, that you would like to know about before making a decision? feel like you said a couple of things that we might not have in these bullets.
Sorry, I'm just rereading it.
So,
I heard something about flooding. And
Beavers.
beavers. Which are probably separate things.
Yes. You can write that.
it's not clear.
Especially with climate change, right? We're getting more intense.
So the flood control levels were put in place quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
There was, it was interesting when I brought it up to Drew and I said, you know, this needs to be assessed, and he said, actually, this covenant on the property that was put there by the province, and I think it was like 40 years ago. Wasn't it? It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so it's obvious that those might not be adequate at this time. Yes. But we do know that they're there, and I think that we also, I think what we maybe decided was just that we were doing our due diligence by saying your houses will flood if you don't assess how high up they need to be built. I don't know if our responsibility goes beyond that to have them assess it. I mean, it's kind of their problem. If they build their house too low, you know what I mean?
If
And
they
then
want
they
to
flood
build,
their own
I guess it
homes.
depends on where the FCL is. If they want to build below the FCL, then they need to have a QEP sign off on that, or give them a report that says they can do that without, you know.
Well, I think what I mean is that like they would have to build to the FCL that's been identified in
Right.
the covenant,
Right.
but.
But we don't know if that FCL is
No, we don't.
adequate for the current conditions on the site.
We don't, but I feel like we've been clear about telling them that they should be reassessed and that.
Okay,
Really,
I mean, that's helpful because you don't necessarily know how the development itself is going to impact that either.
is that kind of what we came to, Drew? Am I remembering that right? Is just that,
Yeah, when we were talking in the field.
no, I mean, before we talked about it, these always come in a couple months and I look at them before, so I don't know what's rest exactly, but I think we determined that, you know, that was kind of enough for me.
For now. DG?
And so if we could let it be the groundwater recharge area for the first bullet. And then I think it is important that we somehow weave in that, you know, given with climate change, the potential flooding. So I'm not sure how that could, whether the FCL should be in those bullets, sort of where I'm thinking it should be, or somehow talking about the potential for flooding should be in the bullets. Because I think we need to have it in there. I mean, I know you've had conversations, but this committee can make that sort of recommendation, so I think.
Surface water flooding has been adequately assessed.
Yeah, maybe that's.
Surface water flooding potential, something like that.
Yeah, flooding potential, that's the.
Including.
Adequately assessed.
Including the activities. Probably says, yeah, or that's, yeah. Has been.
So that means that can be done.
How do people feel about this? Sue Ellen?
Can I see the very bottom text? It says the 83% would like to support. Yeah, do we want to say the 83%
Option.
protection option? Just to make it clear for future versions.
That they're related to the environment. Let's specify that.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that what?
Can we
Everybody sure?
specify, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead. No,
can we specify the zoning as P4? For the park?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Council might be interested in whether you've done this. This group has voice about the trails, but I think at this point, probably that's all we can do tonight.
did you,
I just, I think it should be that there be no contamination of the Grafton Lake watershed.
Do you want to say specifically in relation to septic systems?
Well, I think that covers it, right? Because it's septic, it's also, all the other stuff that people drop onto their land and store.
Diesel.
I think we've talked a little bit about the trails. I'm just thinking it's a quick and dirty one because the connector trail makes sense. The loop trail doesn't, because as Jeremy was saying, it's an expedition through swampland to do the loop, and it's got limited value, whereas the connector trail is a alternative transportation corridor for people to move.
However, we shouldn't be building trails in wetlands.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it might not be a linkage that we want to pursue.
I think that we'd have to say it. A connected trail is acceptable only if it's not through sensitive habitat such as wetlands.
That's fair.
It will be.
Yeah.
Sensitive habitat. I think that, there are exceptions.
Yeah.
Sometimes for a low impact trail.
Yeah.
This has been a desired linkage in our parks plan for many
Yeah.
years, so I think before we start making that statement, maybe we should think about it a little bit, because we
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
boardwalks, we can do,
Yeah, exactly.
linear travel. We're not making the big loop trail, that's definitely not on the table, but making that connection might be something that we should consider.
You okay with that, Claudia?
I couldn't hear Carla very well. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Claudia, I was just mentioning that it's a desired linkage in the parks plan, and I just think that we should maybe think about that more thoroughly before we decide that that it can't be, because it will have to cross probably at least a stream or a wetland at some point, and there may be a way to do that with little impact.
Mhm.
Um,
I would
it-
suggest we take out any reference to the trail at this point, because basically we're saying we're gonna defer our decision anyway. And it doesn't affect what we are recommending to council, this advisory these bullets. I think we leave that out right now. And I also would like to, review it yes, the park plan does encourage more linkages, but they also encourage more conservation areas. So we'd have to weigh the pros and cons there. But I'm not sure it's necessary to put in trail specifics here.
Sounds good. Let's, you need to move on.
Yeah.
So, how are people, feeling about the, proposed motion? Any problems? Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Yeah. Okay, and, Jeremy,
I'm sorry, Lawrence.
Lawrence is seconding. So, okay. And all in favor? Any opposed? No? Done.
Good.
Thank you, everyone. That was good discussion. That was a long 10 minutes.
I am gonna beg off at this point. I needed to leave at 1:45 because it's piano night and I need to,
Recuse yourself.
that's what the word is.
Well, thank you for your input.
I'm sorry, I can't take part in the parks discussion.
It's,
So
yeah,
I have a feeling like you can't defer to. But in the meantime, you are welcome if you want to ever comments on the SharePoint. The SharePoint, we set the link around and it has that table and handed out.
Thought,
It has pictures.
I thought I had put some in already.
Did you? Let's see. I haven't checked in the last couple. Since yesterday, I printed these out yesterday. Okay, so it's then. No, they save automatically.
Okay.
You can check. Good.
Have a good evening, everybody.
all right. So now we move on to the rezone 1355 West Side Road. Daniel. Welcome.
Thank you. So we are staying in the same region of Bowen with another application today for your consideration. So this is an application on West Side Road. All right. So this is where we're talking about property on West Side Road. It's immediately north of the property on Adams Road that we were just discussing. So by a happy coincidence, just in the same area. This is the overall, so the zoning of the site currently is zoned rural residential 3. A fairly common residential zone on Bowen. It permits dwelling, permits agriculture, stable kennel uses, and allows our typical accessory uses. So accessory residential use, which means a secondary suite or detached secondary suite. It allows for residential guest accommodation and for mini storage. And permits that maximum lot coverage of 1,500 square meters. And the proposed development you've heard from the applicant today. The applicant seeks to amend the zoning and ESP designation to permit the development of 34 modular homes on the western side of the property. And the applicant today talks about his goal for these to be rented home sites where tenants would construct their homes on the property and pay a monthly fee for the land to the applicant. The applicant would act as the developer, would create the needed infrastructure on the property. So creating the roads, the water, the septic servicing, common amenities, etc. Just give you an overall sense. So we introduced this to council in October. And so says we are here, but we're now in the stage of referral to committees. And in the council report, we outlined sort of what council is looking for from each of these referrals. So Parks, Environment, Climate Action Advisory Committee, looking for recommendation on proposed trail, protected areas, approach to conservation development policy, as well as obviously overall just support, do not support comments on the application. And then I've highlighted with the second arrow there, just where this would typically come back to the committees. So this is sort of our typical process that sometimes goes, can get diverted or expanded by council, but in a typical process, we refer to committees, we come back to council with results of referrals, council direction to draft a bylaw for first reading, and then that bylaw gets referred again to committees. And then I'll go through some of the points in the reports. The report has various items of staff discussion, and I've highlighted some of them to talk to you about today. So the first being the trail. So the applicant proposes a dedicated trail across the property to connect to the proposed trail on lot 7 that you were talking about today. And I've shown this. This is the highlight from the OCP proposed trail connections map. And so I just note here, staff support a trail connection that avoids sensitive areas on the property and respects neighbors' privacy. So that's just a bigger blow up. So the OCP map is sort of that conceptual map showing the connection along the western edge of the property, but that may not be the most appropriate site across the property. And next up, so conservation development policy. This committee knows this policy. It talks about as first step providing an environmental report that provides analysis of existing natural features and environmentally sensitive areas present on the proposed development site. So that was included in the application package. that you'll have before you. I mean, the applicant, I think yesterday provided additional, just outlining where our wetland is on the property as well. I had calculated the total area of sensitive areas to be approximately 20%. I think the applicant today said 30%. I think that's maybe a difference in just calculating the wetland area. And so staff would say at a minimum would recommend that be protected by restricted covenants as a condition of this rezoning. And there's that diagram showing sensitive areas to a pointer. So wetland on this western edge, Murray Creek being our riparian area. The green showing the identified SPIA, so the streamside protection enhancement area that you couldn't build within. You see Peggy's Creek at the far northeastern corner, just touches the corner of the property, and then that 30-meter riparian area extends around it, as well as a hidden water feature on this property here. And then down in this bottom right corner, what is that southeastern corner? The color doesn't show up very well on this, but showing a potential wetland area. So the boundary is approximate, but at this bottom corner of the site. Other thing in the report when thinking about environmental impacts of septic proposals. So the proposal is to service the site with wastewater with on-site septic. And so we, as we always do, we referred the plan to Vancouver Coastal Health for advice on the proposal. And they have referred the application to the Ministry of Environment and Parks for review, and they'll update us with a response. And so the reason for that is that the proposal is to have essentially 2 on-site septic systems to handle the proposed wastewater from the development. And each of those septic systems is below the threshold of the limits in the sewerage system regulation, but the combined flow for both systems exceeds the flow. And so Coastal Health and the Ministry of Environment has like a recent guidance on this that says, in these cases, these get referred to the Ministry of Environment.
Daniel,
Yeah.
I was looking on the maps and I couldn't find locations where those septic beds are proposed. And it seemed, I think there's something in the text saying it was the southwest or northwest corner, which pushes it into riparian zones. So I'm not sure.
Sure, let me just give me a sec, I'll pull up the plans. Sorry, it's not in the presentation, but it's in the PDF. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is essentially the septic proposal is in this area. A little hard to see, but so if this is the property line, this is the wetland and Murray Creek that comes down. And around here is the sort of the road around, and some of the modular homes come in this area, and the septic fields are in here.
Sort of those rectangular
Yes.
areas that.
Yeah, so this is the plan. I opened the plan for the southern field are the red ones that are in here, and then the north field are these gray ones. There's a separate plan.
Yeah.
That outlines this.
One of the things I had a little difficulty with, I like to superimpose maps. And I tried to superimpose the plan map with the environmental map.
Okay, yeah.
And the edges don't match. You know, so I couldn't overlay it. What I really wanted to do was see where the that middle wetland is with relationship to the storage sites.
So on this map that shows the wetland area, you can see the storage sites on the ortho photo.
Yeah.
This is the mini storage that's currently on site within this area, in this cleared gravel area. And then the wetland being in here.
So the septic fields would be approximately where those mini storage things are, is that what you mean?
No, sorry. let me-
Oh, sorry.
I can- They're roughly in this area. You can see where my mouse is sort of.
Yeah.
So they're the bottom left portion of the property, but outside of the
Yes.
outside of the mark.
They're close, they're upstream of the riparian area. Well, upslope of the, but pretty close.
Right, and that was almost the end of what I had.
Claudia's got
Sure.
questions, right?
So I'm curious about the potential wetland, in the bottom right corner there. Why is it potential wetland? And also it would appear that if those are the boundaries of it, then it's not, allowing for a buffer around it. So yeah, just wanted to flag that. Is,
I see
was
it.
the environmental report included with our items, information items today, or?
Yeah, I think it is. It's from Madison Associates.
It would have been included as an attachment to the council report. And I think the part of the reason is that the initial environmental report focused on the areas of proposed development. So the application for the mini homes are essentially all on that western portion of the lot. So there's no development proposed in this rezoning around where below the mini storage on that side of that wetland. And then in our review of the application, we were noting the conservation development policy calling for an analysis of the entire site. And so we asked for revisions to the report to investigate the entire site. So that's when they investigated the parts of the site where development was not proposed and identified the potential for the wetland in that area.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
I think Daniel still got a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry, the last slide I just had was that we would recommend, because I think that this committee's common practice is that we think a site visit to the property would be in order before seeking actual recommendations from the committee, but we wanted to have this first go around to present the application, have initial questions, and then we can meet on site to discuss.
Yeah.
Or to investigate and come back and do a second meeting.
It's a great idea. Does anybody have questions for Daniel or comments?
Just make a comment. It's related to what you said earlier, Will, about coming up with a list of criteria that we can apply across these referrals. I think it's a really good idea. Because it seems like it puts us in a position to make progressive decision-making or recommendations on these things. It would be great to be like, this is how you can make this work, rather than these are the reasons why you can't make it work.
Yeah.
So just like, I would say generally, it would be a good idea for us to come up with that criteria.
Well, you kind of started that with your parks.
Yeah.
Template, which is
Yeah.
excellent. You usually see that applicable to other.
Yeah.
Considerations.
Claudia has.
Oh, Claudia.
Hi. So Daniel, our conservation development bylaw is that if a subdivision is requested, then 50% should be covenanted or conserved. So I'm wondering why in this case we're saying that it's, 20 to 30%, rather than requesting that it be the full 50.
Sure, so I'll just put the policy up on the screen, so make it a little small for in the room, but just so we have that policy before. So this is the conservation development policy. It wants to ensure that all rezoning applications which increase density outside of the code incorporates conservation development principles and achieve a goal of nature in its half. And so that's the guidelines in it says that rezoning applications outside Sun Cove village boundary in addition to other municipal policies, plans, and bylaws, will be evaluated on the basis of an analysis of existing natural features and environmentally sensitive areas present on the proposed development site. So that's why we asked for to consider the whole site. The incorporation of principles of conservation development with a goal that a minimum of 50% of the total land subject to the rezoning application is protected from further development, priority given to identified environmentally sensitive areas. And then it talks about the means by which the protection is to be provided. And then finally, the guidelines say council may consider the application of this policy in balance with the other municipal targets and policies. So that's what the applicant is pointing to in terms of saying that they are striving to, exceed their deliverance of affordable housing, and that's another municipal target and policies provision of affordable housing. And so essentially saying they're willing to protect all of the environmentally sensitive areas on the site, but would like their application to be considered their provision of the conservation development policy in balance with their provision of the affordable housing targets. So that's what was presented. And that's part of the referral to this committee, I think, from council is saying, okay, can you review the application in light of this policy and provide recommendations to council?
Okay, thank you.
There's just a question of clarification. This map that was sent around identifies the wetland as environmentally sensitive. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then also the creek area just up to the SPIA.
Yeah.
Was there any mention of forest ecosystems being either provincially red listed or blue listed? It's some of the area mature forest sites, second growth mature forests, I presume.
I mean, the report specifically said that the sensitive areas on the property were Murray Creek and the wetland associated with Murray Creek, and then the potential wetland in the southeastern corner, and then the small section of Peggy Creek that crosses the northeastern corner.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, we could start looking at the general criteria we use that I suggest for the parks being things like land that's adjacent to other natural areas so that we can have wildlife corridors or ecological corridors. Again, looking at just the basic habitat maps where if we see that there's mature forest is an important habitat. It might not be rare, but it's important. There's another criteria. We've got the groundwater recharge areas to consider, and again, the final map to the right is the areas of high biodiversity.
Mm-hmm. And Will, if I may, so two items we need to have in there is the presence of sensitive ecosystems, and we have sensitive ecosystem inventory for Bowen Island, so we need to check those maps, and also ecological communities, which are almost all of them are rare in the CWHXM1, which is the biogeoclimatic unit that we're in, and that is a provincial classification, and they are listed either as red or blue listed. So those are all things that should be, like, I'm wondering what proponents that seek out qualified ecological professionals or environmental professionals, what are the standards that they're meeting? Like, I think another thing we should do is that the municipality would be able to provide to a proponent, this is what your environmental report must address, these various headings, because it sounds to me if they're saying only wetlands are sensitive, and yet there's mature second growth forests there that maybe those haven't been adequately addressed.
So I think this is for our future.
There are definitely in terms of reference for environmental assessments available on the municipal website that like QEPs can refer to.
Okay.
So you know, maybe there's room for a bit more when it comes to rezoning of this nature, but that does exist.
So I think for moving on, I think the suggestion that Daniel has made is that site visit is the next step, and recommendations will come from this discussion and the site visit. So I think that'll be the next step. And so I don't know when we'll, I guess, organize a site visit, but probably the sooner the better for the proponent. And
So thinking of the park's perspective, so the proposed trail would be on the east side of the property, but would only be relevant if we followed through on a trail on the adjacent property, is that right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. Just good to know.
And I'm actually happy to see this kind of thinking where we look at a bigger picture than just that one property, because trails especially are bigger than single properties. And I think it's important as well for when we start thinking about ecological corridors as well, that we think beyond the single property. So I think, thank you, Daniel. Do we need to make a motion on this, or is this just going in the minutes? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
And will Sarah be able to send out a doodle poll for a site visit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So it is now 5:48, and we've got the park designation thing, park rezoning. What do you think? Should we?
We have 25 minutes left.
25 minutes. We can do a whole lot in 25 minutes, Carla.
Probably. You wanna?
Sure, let's go.
Okay, so I'll let yeah, Xerxes is gonna talk about what we're gonna do, so maybe we'll go down to like just 5 minutes
Okay,
for the, or do you want me to just go ahead?
sure, yeah, let's.
Okay. Okay, so we printed out Will's maps. Thank you so much, Will, for providing those. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the rest of the committee does too. It's kind of a difficult project. We have a lot of different aspects to look at. There's those environmental features and the zoning from the parks plan and the zoning from the land use bylaw. I'm trying to like look at all those things at the same time. It's quite difficult. So I think the one thing that I feel like might be missed is, and something that is in our parks plan and vision statement is the fact that parks are here also to connect people to nature. So they're not just for nature protection. And I think that, we can look at that as first and foremost that, we want to look at ecological significance. But we also need to look at how accessible is this park to a road. We want to look at equity too. How many parks are in this neighborhood? What is the potential for developing like a small playground here? I'm thinking of things like, in Buchanan Park where they have that little swing set. We have a lot of recommendations in the park plan for diversifying parks too. And so, I don't love the way our zoning is set up. It's not ideal to have the only zones that are allowing playgrounds also allow hard surface courts. So maybe we don't desire a hard surface court, but we might desire a small playground because it provides a place for people to connect. Not everyone is able to hike. Potentially your mobility challenge, potentially you just have kids who refuse to walk anywhere, so giving those kinds of places, I think is also important. So I was just hoping that everyone could consider that in their thought process as well. Xerxes and I have prepared for you this table, this 6th version of the table, and printed out Will's maps as well as brought the old Bowen Island map, very outdated, so not all the lines will be drawn on that map, but if you wanted to have a look at that, write a few notes and just kind of say, I'm in agreement with the zoning, I'm not in agreement with the zoning. Potentially, we can just go through them one by one, and I think Xerxes will lead that. And we'll go through one by one and just see if anyone has really strong feelings about one thing or the other.
Yeah.
And maybe get through it in 25.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so we would just go over the proposed parks and the handout you received, and go through the current allowed uses as well as the proposed zones, and yeah, so we'll just do the ones that we flagged for discussion, and yeah, go through them one by one. So,
So we have 5 minutes to just look at the maps and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that first, just so everybody kind of gets a little. You don't need for about which ones are. Do we want 5 minutes for that or? No, reference those?
I mean, I wonder whether, just given the time, when I did go through it, and the one that I would like to have time to discuss is the Renison Nature Park. Yeah, because I think that one has, I don't know, whether we could start with if anybody else identifies ones where it's like, well, I might disagree with the proposed one and.
Yeah, I really, when I was doing my assessment on with those maps, Evergreen Park was also one that stood out to me as is a really important one. Both of them are big.
Yeah.
And you know, they almost might, you know, sometime in the future have a new special big park designation or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
It just seemed that those would require more discussion than some of these other little ones.
Okay, what do you think? Sorry.
yeah,
Maybe we don't need the 5 minutes.
maybe we don't 5 minutes and just, we could just jump straight to discussion of, Evergreen Park.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, so, I just see the table right now, the current uses in allowable uses in the current zoning are open space and neighborhood parks. It's designated in the park plan as a nature park and music one. Proposed for it to be zoned, P3, so neighborhood park. Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on that proposed zoning?
I'm familiar with the park. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Is it forested?
So it's if you go into the Evergreen development,
Yeah.
the first phase, right? That
It's right.
when you're going up Bowen Bay Road, it's on your Bowen Bay Road, it's on your right hand side.
But the park is on the
It's on the
right side of the Evergreen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Down
yeah,
below.
it would be.
Yeah.
So we'd be bordering Bowen Bay Road for most of the way. So I think once you pass that, it would be all along the road on the right side of the Bowen Bay Road up until you get to that red house before the
Oh, yeah. Okay.
before the beach.
Yeah.
And if you go up into Evergreen, you can end up, there's a trail that's kind of a loop trail on the left-hand side of the road, and then on the right-hand side of the road, you would go up a trail to go to, Aaron's looking at fields.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So there's really not much in there currently, other than one loop trail and a little meditation node, I believe.
So mostly kind of bluffy forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think mostly one.
Okay.
Pretty nice piece of.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one with the nice trail. It's got the look at it. Yeah, the nice trail that goes through it, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's,
So I was curious about it being P3 rather than P4. And the rationale for Evergreen Park P3. Is there a need for, like, and also, I think, you know, it is a big park. Is there a way to say, you know, do we need like some neighborhood space, like with a playground? But the majority of it, the park could be more nature parky, right?
And that's
Because you could
why
have athletic
I've
fields
got,
and-
but the whole thing about designation for those big parks, you know, it worries me when I see that a big park with lots of nature on it has designation for hard surface courts and playing fields.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, I guess I think of national parks in Canada. Some of them have golf courses on. But that's just a little area in the park that's a special area for that kind of recreation. But you know, they do protect bison in a park that has a golf course. So maybe we have to do some thinking about that sometime in the future, maybe not now.
But if we designate it now as P3, then
Things can happen.
yeah.
So that's my worry. But you've got more experience with what's going on. So Carla, what's your feeling?
I guess I feel that this project, the rezoning project, would really, and so maybe even add to this because I know it's a council directive and it was to add an additional protection. So rezoning it as any kind of park is adding an additional measure of protection. And I feel like I thought it was going to be a housekeeping item, like each of the office. And now it's more of a discussion and it's understandable because these zonings are not great and it's hard to fit each one into these individual boxes. However, if we start looking at changing the zoning, it makes it into an even bigger project. And it's already bigger than we're intending it to be. You know, I think we talked about that before, is that we don't intend on building park service courts in these park areas. But I guess maybe it would be hard for me to provide assurances that, you know, 30 years down the road, someone didn't decide to do that. I mean, I think we could also think about the fact that our municipal parks make up about like less than 3% of the island's, you know, land. So in comparison, Crippen Park, just the one park that will never have any further development because they are very much into the protect and connect kind of mandate, right? I mean, that's kind of my assumption. Is quite a bit bigger. It's 221 hectares or 240 now compared to, you know, we've got about 140. So it's just another thing to consider, I think, is that we have very small potential for any kind of development for like outdoor recreation facilities, things like that. And I guess I think that when there's a big, large part where, yes, a lot of it's environmentally sensitive right here, but there's also this weird little piece across the road that maybe has really great accessibility and, you know, maybe could be a little pocket park. I don't love the idea of stifling that.
I second that. I think like flexibility built into that P3 designation is great. I mean, looking at the map of Evergreen Park, there's no space for a hard surface park. It's never had.
Yeah.
And it's also sort of us imagining some nefarious creatures in the future being like, it's time to pay. I mean, which I guess could happen, but it does seem pretty unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, there's always gonna be, well, not necessarily always gonna be the committee, but in
Yeah.
general, the municipality, I think will always get some sort of community consultation. And, you know, probably this committee will go on for another 30 years or so, and that those would have to go through more processes before anything would be developed in those parks.
So,
I'm looking at, I appreciate your point about, the whole point of this is to add protection. And this is something I brought up with council, because some of these are still listed as rural residential, right? They don't have protection. A different council could come in, sell them off, combine them with something, who knows? You know, there might be steps to go through, but I'm looking at emails here from back in 2007, where I'm going, what about, when does it actually turn into a park and is protected, you know, that I've been sending to staff. So I think there's gonna be fine tuning, and fine tuning sometimes I just worry, okay, here's from something I wrote to Parks Planner back in 2008. I worry that a future council could sell parts but use it for other things than originally intended. This would set the whole park's effort back in various ways, as well as a cooling effect on any developers who wanted to provide parks or any donors. And so, you know, that kind of thing. I hear it. I just think this is an interim step to let's get them described as park. Because otherwise it could be another 20 years.
So just a question of clarification. So this table here that we've got, that is from the bylaw?
This is from the land use bylaw, and we have to put them into one of these boxes.
Right. And they're already in some of these boxes?
No. Many of the parks are, the ones that we are discussing for rezoning are not currently in these boxes. They're mostly zoned settlement residential, or they're like leftover parcels.
These are the leftover parcels
that are in the same zoning as the rest of the subdivision.
Right. So for example, at Evergreen Park, like when I was wondering whether it could be P4, you said it would have to be rezoned to be, maybe I misunderstood you, to make it P4 rather than P3.
We're rezoning all the parks currently. That's what we're doing.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
Rezone these.
We're rezoning.
Yeah, I got the impression when I said that it would be a problem to make it P4 rather than P3.
No, I was just saying that if we make it P4, we're definitely not allowed to do anything in that park, like any kind of development in that park, because P4 only allows an interpretive/information center.
You can do trails,
Use other than
trails, buildings, interpretive signs.
so
You can't do an athletic park, hard surfaces, playing fields, playgrounds, etc.
here's my compromise suggestion that first step is to get these residential lands labeled as parks, and that we would like to in the future have some discussion about modifying the current designations, the current suggested designations, so that we can move forward and not spend too much time in the reads, and do the thing that Sue Ellen has wanted to do for
It's 2008.
since 2008. Get these lands designated as parks so that they won't get squished like bugs sometime.
Can I just also say that getting parks protected has been the work of previous committees through time, even back to the Bowen Island Parks and Rec Commissions. And so they're almost there, right?
Yeah.
Like we're treating them as parks, and they have dotted lines around them on the GIS map and this is just kind of eating the work of putting the final numbers in that little box. And please help me.
I'm just wondering, has there been resistance? Why is it taken 20 years?
Because they're partly protected. It's partway through the process, as my understanding. And and it used to be that we didn't have a CARA.
Right.
And sometimes, back when I started sending these, we only had one person in the planning department. And so I think it's finally time that we've got a council that wants to finish things that have been started and has enough environmental concern on them that it would actually happen.
I would add to that too, that if the settlement residential kind of zoning or comprehensive development, a lot of the time there's sort of a protection on it because the maximum allowable area has already been developed within that comprehensive development. But I think nowadays we start to think about when provinces requiring more development for affordable housing or other concerns like that. This is the time, or maybe we really need to think of getting that extra layer of protection on. And sorry, DJ, when you were talking about the zones before too, this in our work generally is not something that I would refer to. I would be referring to the park classifications from the parks plan definitely more often. And this is
But this is what's in the bylaw.
this is a bylaw, yes, or
what's in the
something to
bylaw.
have to follow this, yes. But I think
Or
for
it
an
doesn't
intent-
exactly match.
it absolutely doesn't.
I didn't notice that.
For an intended use, if we were looking at what we think the intended use is, that the community is supportive of, this is what I would.
Right now,
Right now,
right now, but.
I think the
Better than
idea would be we
residential-
would update this.
Yeah,
eventually.
no, totally.
Oh, yeah, there've been several attempts that committees have made to provide different and better zoning. The parks plan is currently it. I hope that they would fit in easily, but the rezoning, or sorry, the amending of the land use bylaw is a huge big deal. And it hasn't happened yet, even though we've got the parks plan. So it's ready. And maybe that would be the next step when we could revisit this. Is when and if the land use bylaw is next amended. Update.
Well, can we just, like Will was saying, just go like designate them as parks and not have to get into the P1? We have to. And it solve our problem.
It has to be zoned as a specific thing.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna suggest instead of going to the black hole parks, that we start at the top
Not sure.
and do the best we can.
In the
Next little while. Like I'm looking at community land
6
lot
minutes.
2 is something we could put a check mark on right now.
Okay. Yeah, so,
Does that work for everybody? Yes.
That works.
yeah, so like, it says on the sheet, we're proposing, that the community lands be zoned as a P2, multi-use activity park.
So everybody seems good with that?
Yeah. Okay.
Check.
We'll- Let's pass by Evergreen Park for now.
Okay.
And try King Edward Bay Park.
Right, so we're proposing that be zoned, multi-use activity park as well.
The only reason that I put that down as multi-use activity park is because there's a playground right across from it. And then, so half of that park is just stream protection, but then there's a big flat area right across from the playground, so it would be like a destination.
Are you okay with that, Claudia? I'm just looking at you, looking.
So, Carla, can you repeat that? So on the other side, like where the playground currently is, some of, like King Edward Bay doesn't extend on that side, does it? The park?
Across,
Yeah.
it's across from the Arbutus Ridge Playground Park, right? So it's directly opposite on the other side of the road. There's kind of a three-way T-junction where
Currently, it's being used as a parking
parking lot for the beach.
Yeah.
For people to go down
I've
to the
never
beach.
seen anyone there, and I think that mostly people just dump their garden waste in there.
I have parked there, I will say. So because there's that bit of flat area, you're thinking that it might be a multi-use park? I mean, I see it. Okay, so I use that trail quite a bit to get down to the beach, and it's it's
So this is on the other side of the road from the beach trail.
Yeah,
So the beach trail's on the other side of what's the road that goes down there? Is it Captain's Way or?
Captain Kate's Walk,
Yeah,
or no, that's the.
but it's right now used as a parking.
it's right now
so
used
it's
as
a
beach,
parking lot,
it's
yeah.
designated as beach parking.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yes.
So the beach parking lot could be developed into something maybe more exciting for the parking lot.
okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that then. As long as
Okay.
the gully is not but again, when we make these designations, it's difficult because we can see what we're talking about, that, oh, this flat area could be developed, but we're just putting a label on it that says that at some point the committee said, oh, that it can be used in multiple ways. It
Right now,
would,
it's pretty heavily treed, so there's quite a few cedar trees and fir trees in there, so.
yeah, like I wouldn't want to see them removed to put in, you know, a hard court or something like that. Like we need all the trees we can keep for carbon sequestration and resilience of our
But this is
our
small.
habitats. It's small, yeah. So I don't have a big issue. I just want to be cautious.
I think we can come back
We can
when,
probably,
when the land use bylaw comes in. Maybe,
If ever.
yeah. Xerxes, what do you think about Mountain Creek Park?
I think we had it proposed to be P3, so neighborhood park, or possibly P2, possibly like 2 yard, because in the P3 zone, information center isn't allowed.
So just to elaborate on that a little bit, this is kind of a weird one because Mountain Creek Park is mostly for stream protection. There is an old reservoir there, not currently used, that I think had some weird kind of filling thing happening or something there that could be restored as a wetland. And what's that?
No, I just realized that's what you're talking about, the wetland.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one that I just, kind of keep in my back pocket, like that would be a really cool project to do in the future sometime. And I would wanna combine that with that interpretive science probably, and thought that was weird that P3 didn't allow that. But, potentially P1 allows that. P1?
P1 passive park.
Yeah, okay, P1,
Okay.
sorry, I don't know why. Okay, P1.
With P1?
Yeah, we're supposed to be wrapping up. Do we want to try and just quick votes for the ones we can, or do we will have to revisit that? At some point, so we can just wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap up quick votes on the remaining, except I guess I will skip our.
I'm actually.
You're done like dinner?
It's trying to done like dinner.
You're 3 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
But I can leave and you guys can carry on.
Oh. We need your big brain, DG.
Yeah, I just got back from the East Coast on the hour ahead.
Well, thanks, everybody, for getting started on this. No, the other things took a long time.
Thanks for all the deep thinking people do all these things too. And thanks, Carla, for that, pointing out the people connection with the land there too.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is something, you know, I do really appreciate the massive something that I was wanting to put together, but just couldn't do it in the timely enough fashion that it made sense. So yeah.
Do people want
Really
to
helpful.
update from me? I've got it really quickly.
Why don't we have your update before we go?
Council received a delegation at our last council meeting, which was Monday, all wheels terrain park. So this is skateboard park type thing, but all wheels welcome. They're thinking maybe somewhere near the bike park. I'm just going to skip through these quickly, just so you're alerted. Council voted to refer some land development proposals to Squamish Nation, which has been happening a little bit, I think, but not regularly. And so we've changed our procedures bylaw. Council has. And they're looking at the climate strategy. So we had a committee of the whole, Carla's in charge of that. We may get, you'll hear more. Multi-use pathway, we approved the next section, so it's continuing, but it'll be after the S-bends. So from like Kate's Hill Road on the other side to Grafton Lake or Forster Lane. And so so the work on the multi-use pathway continues. It's just not going to be further on the same, doing another section. Some of the referrals that we've had, Eagle Cliff, that Lawrence lives near, and the Mount Gardner lot. That for both of those were 50% dedications, and Collins Lane, Marion Moores. So all of those have advanced, not all the way yet, but the Collins Lane one, for example, has staff are preparing the conservation covenant for that lot up on Collins Lane, and it's been referred to the Islands Trust. So they're all kind of going ahead. I can give you more details if you want. And the trust policy statement is open for review. This is the overall, it's like the OCP of all the island OCPs. It's being updated finally after 20 years. There's a survey at the municipal website. Please fill it in. That's my report.
Thank you, Smell. All right, and thanks, Xerxes, for your patience on this.
The bigger project, but that's what.
Well, I think there's a lot of passion about parks and protected areas on this committee, so
Yes.
Carla, sorry about the time.
Are you adjourning? It's not, we're moving and seconding and.
I move adjournment.
Okay. Done.
In favor.
Okay, did you back to bed?
I don't, no, I can't go to. And I was waiting, trying. Oh, this is probably. Actually.